Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Can you all hear me? This is the Full English Show, and I will say it at the very beginning. If you're watching on Catch Up at any other time, if you're watching on Rumble, wherever you're watching from, do me a favour. Come over to Rumble, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share, right? Because the only people getting this information out there is you, no one else. So the few things I was going to talk about tonight, hopefully you're all pouring on board, which I can currently see. We're going through the numbers at the moment. I hope some people are enjoying the weather. Not that it's very nice in London, but we actually got out today because I'm working all day tomorrow and drove down to, what was that place with a C?
Croyd.
Who?
Croyd.
Croyd. Croyd. Place called Croyd. To have a look at that. It was lovely. It was so beautiful, the sands, and it actually made me laugh. Because Janet took her sandals off and started screaming on the sand. Oh, sand burning my feet. And I couldn't stop laughing, right? Because I had shoes on. Of course, it's going to burn your feet. It's in the heat. Right, so just to let you know, then we had an ice cream and come back. We'll have a quick look. So there's a few things I want to do, and I am going to go through a book in a couple of seconds, but not much of it. But I do think this is important if anyone who's got any access or wants to clip the section I'm going to do on the book and send it to Charlie Downs, because Charlie Downs actually made his speech about this is a revolution. We need a revolution. So when I get to that part, I'm going to say, we need a revolution. And I'm going to show the book and the clip and say, listen, that's one of our scholars talking about revolutions. And technically, we don't need one, right? So the main thing that I'm talking about tonight, on Sunday night or Sunday evening, I thought it was so important that I breached my weekend and done a video, I think, for about 40 minutes, talking on the subject of Rupert Lowe and Brett Weinstein, right? And I've had all sorts of comments coming back at me. You know he's Jewish, Brett Weinstein's. I'm like, so what? Right? They're not all bad. Various other things, but mainly what we've noticed, or what I've noticed, and many other people have started to notice, this group of people called Ethonats, and the reason why I'm going to lead on the front of the show with this, because I think it's important, right? The Ethno-nationalists seem to have orchestrated clips and attacks on Rupert Lowe, which, in my opinion, are counterproductive to a common sense group moving forward. That's why I'm going to say it. There's certain things that I absolutely 100% believe in, that the union should no longer exist. I think it's no different to the USSR. It's no different to the European Union. It is completely counterproductive. It was only put in place if anyone is a true capitalist, especially Rupert Lowe and others. This is the bit that makes me laugh, right? If you are a true capitalist and you know why the union was first put in place, it was because the oligarchies of England and Scotland came together and said Scotland's too big to fail. So they bailed it out with English money, right? That's exactly what happened. They bankrupted themselves, and instead of letting them fail and then recover slowly over time, they decided to bail them out by bringing them into our parliament, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that there wouldn't have been some extreme suffering in Scotland, but the extreme suffering would meant that someone would have learned from history not to go invading places that you can't back it up, right? So, from my point of view, as a capitalist, the union was put in place, and it is still in place as a bad thing for the English, right? But that said, I'm winding that back slightly. I still believe it. I still believe 100% that we need to nullify it, especially after you see that Scottish MP and what she's done in Parliament, right? It backs up everything I'm saying, right? You don't just have to be elected in a Scottish constituency, you can be a Scot or a Welshman elected in Devon, which is in England, right? And they would still be representing. To me, that's dual nationality in our parliament, and it shouldn't be there because they haven't got the best interests of the English people. They're looking after the other side as well. That's not what you're there for, right? But again, I've seen orchestrated clips, plenty of it coming from that David Clues as well. I don't think of anyone out of everyone, he has been probably the most negative, right? So I just want to make sure that I put. Did anyone know? So you've heard me talk. First of all, I said, listen, put your money where your mouth is and start a political party. That's what we did, right? And it's hard work running a political party, especially when it's anti-government and it's anti-establishment, right? And then you've got people that are supposed to be on your side attacking you. It just don't make any sense to me. So I think that the eco-nationalists are actually far left, and I've always believed that fascists are on the left. They were national socialists. That they had a complete. They were authoritarian. Fascists, Nazis were authoritarian in nature. That is completely anti-English, right? So I just want to make sure I say that to people. But I will say this: everyone heard me speak. This is my view of the eco-nationalists. I've come to Devon, in particular Devon. There's a couple of other places I would go in England because it is 98% white where I am, right? That's exactly why I've come here. I've had enough. I had enough of London. And all of the foreigners, not just white ones, as well as black ones, as well as brown ones, as well as all the different religions and all the fruitcakes that are walking around the street. I've had enough of all of it, right? So I come to Devon, and I was walking around today at that Cloyd. There was young girls in bikinis, right, all bowling around, right, all happy, giggling, and coming off the sands, and no one took any notice of them, right. What I'm trying to say to you is that there was no threat, but a couple of times we stopped in different places. There were van loads of what I describe as Pakistani Muslims, right, pulling up, and they was all being, oh yeah, nice, we're just looking for the beach, blah 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 blah, right. That's how it starts, and then they project to the local people. Oh, we're bullied and persecuted in England, and and then what comes out from that when they start saying to the local community, oh, we're persecuted in London and in the cities, and then the rural communities start with their feeling sorry for them, right? Suicidal empathy. That's how it starts, and then they start to take over, and then they start to say, "You will live like us." And then you see them girls out of bikinis being raped, and everyone turning a blind eye to it. I will say that Croyd seemed middle class rather than lower class area, right? Even though it had a beach. So my point to everyone about why I'm bringing this up is because of these attacks I've seen on Rupert Lowe and his team. The attacks I'm seeing on Marlon West are disgusting, coming from all angles, right? They're now saying I'm not even going to say what they were saying. It's disgusting. I am disgusted by the attacks I am seeing on Marlon West. And every one of us should be supporting the fact that at the point of the spear, right, is the protection of our children against these invaders. That is the absolute right. So all of the other stuff is parked until we penetrate with that spear, and people start the people who need to go to prison or even be hanged face justice. Right? it's as simple as that. The point of the spear is literally that situation where them young girls have been raped and tortured, right? So again, getting back to this ethno-nationalism thing, which, by the way, the word comes from the left, right? And that's why I don't like using it. It's a bit like I don't like using these, where they've come out with these other words, millenniums and Zoomers and all that. But my opinion of that is that all comes straight out of the lefty playbook to start splitting up and separating people, right? Boomers, right? Disgusting. That is just all psychological framing to divide people. But do you all remember me talking about Oriana in South Africa? And this is a positive, by the way, and I like that. I mean, to be fair, I've come to Devon. It's the closest I've got to Oriana. Is in Devon, right? And there's not many places in England, and they're being targeted now, right? That are white places, right? And I'm seeing more and more blacks and brown people moving in and being guided to move there and being assisted to move there, unlike me, right? Well, there's a group called Patriotic Alternative, and they bought some land in Wales. So where I say put your money where your mouth is, it appears they have actually done that, right? I don't know where they're getting their money from. I've no reason to doubt it's absolutely legit, right? I can see people wanting to pile money into that, right? I applaud the fact that they've done it, and they have created their own white only area, but in Wales, right? And at first, and again, it was someone who was contacted me on Twitter last night, and I want to get him on the show, and I will get him on the show just to have a chat about a few things. But before we do, I'm going to show you. I didn't realise that they'd actually done that, right? So for some reason, it's not. Oh, there you go. It's up on the screen. Can you see that up on the screen? This article is 9 months old. I didn't know anything about this. Now, Oriana, I've covered a few times, and make sure you all understand. Oriana is Protestant only. They call it a white Christian community, but it is Protestant, right? And there's good reason for it. So here it says, why here inside the Mid Wales village, where a far right figure has created a settlement. Woodlander initiative provokes mixed reactions in Luthanian 4, as critics say aim to build racially exclusive communities. I don't see why there's any problem with that at all, right? I do not consider, if that is what they want to do, the problem is they won't be able to do it, and I'll tell you for why in a minute. Can everyone see that? During the Middle Ages, monks would travel to the village of Luthanian 4, I think that's what it's called, in Mid Wales to visit the church and relics of St. Afan, a son of King Gwynedd, I think that is, martyred by foreign pirates centuries before. Today, a different sort of pilgrim can be found here. Two hilly, wooded parcels of land have been bought by Woodlander Initiative TWI, a land buying scheme led by Simon Burkett, a far right figure with links to Patriotic Alternative, the UK's largest fascist group. Critics say Wiltshire-based Burkett's aim is to create a racially exclusive settlement. He has cited Oriana and again, I didn't know anything about this place, right? Not Ariana, but what they've done, and then and he has cited Ariana, so it's obvious he knows about it, right? A whites-only town in South Africa as an inspiration for the project. TWI successfully bought the two small plots totaling a few acres from a local farmer late last year after attempts in Cumbria and East Sussex fell through. Since launching in 2023, the group has raised 165,000 of a goal of 1 million. Money Burkitt plans to use to buy land or property in every county in Britain. We need to start building that alternative, our own businesses, our own institutions, Burkitt said during an address at Patriotic Alternatives annual conference last October. We need our own schools with our own rules. Well, I've got to tell you something. I don't disagree with this fella. He added, we need our own areas, we need our own land, we need our own buildings, we need our own conference centres, and we need our own communities for our culture. And it's down to us to start building it. Burkitt is now making his dream a reality. No one was around during the Guardian's visit last week, so they went and snooped on them, right? But the larger plot, previously an open field, is now a campsite. It hosted several tents, along with camping gear, solar panels, a wood store, and a toilet block. Some of the fencing was clearly new, and at the second hilly wooded site, a small gazebo was perched among the oak trees. According to anti-fascist group Hope Not Hate, which exposed TWI purchases in Burkitt has already hosted members of PA at the sites, which are about 20 metres apart. Right now, I've got to tell you something. I haven't got a problem with what they've done. Right, in fact, but it goes on. The locals are having a pop, and they're having a pop because the Guardian's been down there winding them up about it. Other than that, the locals didn't know. Right? They was keeping themselves to themselves, etc. So the people winding up the local community is the mainstream media. Or would you Adam and Eve it? Right? So just to make sure everyone understands that, I've shown you it because I started off saying put your money where your mouth is and start your own political party. They've gone one step further and said we're gonna. And by the way, someone else did this in Cornwall. They didn't have it. It wasn't an all-white or all Protestant white community, and I can't remember where it was, but it was in Cornwall. Someone will find it in a thing, but it was an estate agent that he moved into this particular part of Cornwall, and then there was two estate agents. I think he purchased both the estate agents, and you can only local people was only selling properties in that estate agent. And then he said he went and knocked on every single door, a bit like a member of parliament, right? And said, don't sell your house to anyone but through me, right? And I'll promise you your house will be worth £1 billion in 5 years' time. And people laughed at him, and they went, oh, that's all right, right? So the houses went from 80 to £100,000 because it was such a stunningly beautiful area, right? White sands, lots of space, beautiful buildings, ripe for development, right? So when these properties with a bit of land was coming up, they was coming through him. Instead of putting it up for 80, 100 grand, he said, yeah, that's up for sale, 1.5 million. So all of a sudden, they was putting their properties to a different client list. Instead of the people coming in there with 80 to 150,000, they were saying to very rich people, this is a community for you, right? And there was only one road in and one road out, right? So in effect, it was their own community. And I can't remember, it was a billionaire that bought big property there, right? Paid millions and millions to be there. The place is the nuts, right? So you can do these things. This is strategic thinking, right? And then operate in the way that you should operate to keep a certain group of people out. He was trying to keep us out, right? I'm not a billionaire. I couldn't afford to go and live there in Cornwall, right? In that rich place. In fact, I'd probably live anywhere in Cornwall, right? Not you want to live in Cornwall. They don't like anyone in Cornwall. But my point being to you, it is possible, right? So the next part of what I'm about to say to you, so without you all thinking on this, I've had enough, right? That's why I've moved out, and I want to warn people what is going to happen, and people don't realise the millions are already here. The difficult bit's been done. The bit of coming into your communities is the easy bit, right? Does everyone like my old mucker? I've got you. I'm just going to show you my old mucker. Look at that one. Do you like that one? Can you see him? There he is. Look. What do you think of him? See that? Oh, he's bit me. Look at him. What did you think of that? Do you like that? I like that. Hopefully I'll put him back on the side there and you can see him. Right. The EU samples, they all think he's amazing. He's amazing, isn't he?
He is amazing.
He's amazing. Right, so there's a couple of things very briefly I'm going to touch on, and if anyone wants me to do a show on this, I will, because I find this interesting, very interesting. Let me see if I can go and find, just so I've got more of my notes on it, and then we're going to go back to some other elements. To be truly sovereign, you must have something called a lodal title. I had a guy from the Shetland Islands, Orkney Islands, talking about this. Does everyone remember a few years ago? I've still got the emails. I don't know if he's still alive. I know he weren't very well. And we was talking about a lodal title, right? So a lodal title means you own the land. It is not under the authority of the Crown or its government. You are sovereign on that land, right? If you own that with a lodal title, they're your rules, you're the governor, no one else, right? Orkney and Shetlands are two of them places we've still got a lodal title. The Isle of Man, which is why it is self-governing, although it is a protectorate of the Crown, and they can make their own laws in their own parliament, their own financial laws, right? So they can make a law tomorrow that if you want to borrow money to buy an house on the Isle of Man, you can't have an interest rate over X. They can bring in a Hong Kong tax system. They can do anything they want, right? England and Wales was a lodal title, majority, right? And so was America. But in particular, in England and Wales itself, pre-1066. So the Anglo-Saxon period, some land, not all of it, but some land, the majority of land, was held allodally as bog land and folk land, what we used to call common land, right? Relatively independent ownership without feudal duties, right? And that meant that the Crown could not tax you, couldn't enforce laws upon you. It was you. And if you wanted to get a load of men on there and defend your allodal title to be sovereign, and the people living on there with you are sovereign, then you could do. But in 1066, the Norman Conquest and William the Conqueror declared all land belonged to the Crown. This imposed a feudal system across England, converting most holdings into tenures held of the Crown or lords. This effectively ended widespread allodial title, right? So just so everyone knows, there's more to this because they didn't actually fully abolish it. They just chipped away at it, and I can tell you more about that. So anyone that starts telling you that they are sovereign on their own land, even if you have a freehold today, the easiest way to tell is if you was to lease that out, right? If you was to lease, where's my phone? It's clicking, it's pinging away somewhere. If you was to thank you. If you was to lease your home out on a long-term lease, and after 2 years the people can force you to sell it to them, right? Then you haven't got a freehold. Anyone else who can force you to do something with your property, you ain't got a freehold. If the council can come in and buy your property and give you compensation, you haven't got a freehold, right? Just to make sure you're all aware of that. And by the way, there's only one place that I know of, and this is off top. This is from memory, so I might be wrong with this. There's only one place in England currently that's got a allodial title, believe it or not, a allodial title, and that's Somerset House in London. That goes all the way from was it the Strand, all the way down to the river. That building, yeah, has a allodial title, and it's managed by a trust. So if you didn't know that, you do know. You do know now, right? And Orkney Islands and Shetland Islands technically is not part of Scotland. It comes from these old laws come from Norway, because them islands and the Isle of Man belong to Norway, not to Scotland. And if you go back, all of the oil fields belong to the Shetland Islands and the Orkney Islands. And I did a whole show on this because it fascinated me. And the guy sent me, and I don't know if he's watching anymore, but like I say, he wasn't very well. I know somebody who lives in Shetland Islands. Right, I'd love to live there. It's absolutely stunningly gorgeous. Bit flat though, but Jacobite or not the real Scots. Just what all I'm doing is just telling you that now, right? So, some parts of America have got a allodial title. Some parts of America, as far as I'm aware, and this will always be disputed, but in my opinion, it cannot be disputed, right? Because Parliament and the Crown itself gave 3 acres of running mead to the United States of America. Technically, that land is a allodial title. They are sovereign on that land. It is their land, right? And it says on that. So there is one title higher than fee simple absolute. Even fee simple absolute isn't as high as the allodial title. Allodial title is you make the rules. You make the rules. You govern yourself. So if patriotic alternative, I haven't got on if patriotic alternative want to try and find a way of doing that, or even, and this gets to the next part of what I'm going to talk about, which is really important for everyone. If they want to assist in creating that revolution where that happens, they should wind their necks in about Rupert Lowe, because the only other group of people talking about a full-scale revolution where that could happen, right, it is Charlie Downs, right, and the person attacking Charlie Downs are the Tommy Robinson and Tommy Robinson mob, right? So just to make sure I'm telling you what's going on there, let me just check my phone before I do anything else, and I may have a quick drink. And it is, even though it's normally quite cool in here. Let me have a look. Let's see how many people have come up on this. Racial. Let's see if there's anything on here. Is he actually on there? Yeah, we need as many Americans to understand what's going on over here. So I'm pleased that Brett Weinstein, and listen, there's a lot of Jews involved in the media, right? If they decide, hang on a minute, right, that maybe we should be looking at this, and especially if they want to start bringing themselves out as the good guys, you want to take every bit of help we can at the moment to get this out there. Now, again, I'm going to talk about this because I think it's important. Hopefully, I can go back onto this element. I bet I ain't got it. Yes, I have. Right now, I'm gonna briefly talk about this. Let's put it on there so you can see it. Rupert Lowe has put this tweet out, right? The rape gangs were allowed to flourish so rapidly, partly because it was working class communities affected and the establishment was happy to look the other way, right? The rape of English towns and cities were targeted first, right? And by the way, now they're coming for the rural communities. The rural communities don't know that they're living in a false reality, right? They don't realise their towns and cities have already technically been conquered, right? Tolerated, enabled, allowed, and encouraged. The cancer must be eradicated, right? And then I've put on the bottom of that, and there's not many retweets of it. Let's copy that and see if we can get some more retweets on it. And again, I'm not forcing myself to be positive. I think
I think the Tories didn't do enough about it when they were in power, but the Labour Party has put power ahead of right and wrong. So you've had the Tories didn't do enough about it when they were in power, but the Labour Party has put power ahead of right and wrong. So you've had, and the fear of being called a racist by almost every state body has meant that they weren't prepared to look into this in the way they should have done. And that has effectively allowed this evil to propagate. And Labour continue to refuse. They refuse a national inquiry. They've now said they're having a national inquiry as a result of what we've done. We've had 20,000 people who've crowdfunded a rape gang inquiry, which we've held. We had 2-week hearings. 2 of them.
I'm going to stop it there, right? We help contribute to that, right? And all I'm seeing at the moment are these so-called ethno-nats, so-called right-wing. I don't believe they are right-wing. Their methods and how well orchestrated their attacks are, they appear to be extreme left. In other words, fascists. And I'm not surprised that Rupert Lowe does not like fascists or Nazis, nor do I. They are authoritative, and it is completely against the English will and way.
The worst weeks of my life. We heard some absolutely horrific testimony. And a lot of this goes back to the tensions, really. A lot of it's down to Islam and the way in which Islam teaches its followers that they are superior to other religions. And as you know, if you ever during these crusades, if you lost a battle to Saladin, you had 2 choices: you either converted to Islam or they killed you. And it's not dissimilar to that, and we go into all the reasons. And I urge everybody to read our report. It's 200 pages of. I think it's fascinating, even though my wonderful team, has done it with the help of a superb barrister called Graham Smith. We held the hearings properly. We've done it with the backing of these 20,000 concerned people here. So it's a big issue here. And a lot of it has been hushed up because it's in working class communities rather than the mainstream wanting it. So these people who call me a neo-Nazi have allowed, this is a national newspaper, have allowed this evil to continue for, as I say, 30, 40, 50 years on an increasing scale. And it's been allowed because people are frightened of being called racist.
That's exactly right. And what's happening is that, and it is being assisted and propagated by the eco-nationalists, many of whom regard themselves as Nazis. And if they think they don't, I was tricked into going to one of their events in the north of England, where some guy, can't remember even what, and he's been on David Clues's show on UNN Networks, where David Clues was bringing him up and saying, "You carry on doing what you're doing a wonderful job, you keep speaking out, you're a fantastic leader." I believe there was something mentally wrong with the guy. I think his name is Alex or something like that. He's not English. He's actually Australian, right? But he was at this place, and it's what put me off Sam Melia and Laura. Not that I dislike them, but it put me off that whole group, because this guy was dressed like Adolf Hitler, with a trench coat on and a big thing around the middle, and he was standing there and he was talking like he was a Nazi. And I was like, this is just surreal, right? And then they're getting people to march up the high street and do all sorts of... I'm like, this ain't a bit of me. I'm not a Nazi. I'm an Englishman, right? You've got to be really clear. English common law forbids both fascism and communism equally, right? Because we have the common law. They both them ideologies rely on technically Roman law, right? That's not a bit of me, all right? So just making sure you understand that. Now, getting back to this is something he's probably never going to see it. But Charlie Downs did a fantastic speech. I wish I could show the speech on here. If anyone's got the link to it on there, let me see if I can. Charlie Downs speech, right? Revolution. And this is really important that he gets it, right? So Charlie Downs lays out restores Britain country, left or right. That was 4 hours ago. Do we believe in conserving? Right, here it is. Right, this was on March the 16th. He put this out. Right, so if everyone was to try and send a clip that I'm about to do to Charlie Downs, I don't know how you could do it, but someone needs to be able to do it, right? Because I think some of these people are listening. Right, what I'm going to do is bring this up. He says, we do not believe in conserving the system. We do not believe in reforming the system. We believe in revolution. Right? It's important that you all understand what I'm about to say, because I'm going to launch into this clip in a second. We believe in revolution. From my speech at the launch of Restore Britain. Now, what would terrify these people in a full-scale revolution is if us, the people, turn around and say, we want to go back to allodial titles, right? We live in our own community in England, so an allodial title could be Devon, right? And we say, you can't have black people, you can't have brown people, you can't have any other religion other than Roman Catholic without the Jesuits and Protestants, right? That's it. We are a Christian county shire. And people don't realise how strong that would be. That's basically how we used to be governed. So I'm going to show this to you.
We have advanced the discourse on what that word, Britain, actually means.
So before I go any further, I was in the audience. This is at the launch of Restore Britain.
Not an idea or an administrative identity, not a piece of paper, but a people. A people who have been forgotten and spat on by our own government. A people punished for merely suggesting that they don't want to be demographically replaced in their own homeland. A people who, on present trends, are set to become a minority in this country within 50 years. We are the bearers of the greatest civilization this world has ever known. And look at the bleak condition that we find ourselves in now. In every town that you go to, you will see graffiti, boarded up shops, litter, vape shops, barbers, and foreigners who have no connection to our land. This cannot go on. And it is not enough to just stop this process of decline. It must be reversed. The dominant philosophies offered to the patriotically minded people of this country today are simply not adequate. If you look at what the two right-wing parties offer, it is conserving and reforming. And if you ask me, you would have to be a madman to want to conserve the status quo, to conserve the system that currently exists. And the idea that you would want to reform this system, what that says is that you actually believe in the system, that you think that it's being done badly. You think that this version of Britain, the UK, as they call it in their name, that you think that it's legitimate, but the people running it are just doing it badly. No, I think that this system itself is illegitimate. Therefore, what I think we need is a revolution. And with that, I give you Rupert Lowe.
Now, I was there, right? I was there then. So was Janet, right? So were others of our membership, just to make sure you all get this. And I agree entirely with what he was saying. And he was even having a pop at the UK. He was saying that Reform are actually saying they agree with the system, right? Now, this is the important part, right? This is the important part. The UFO nationalists are all having a dig. This movement is bigger than just one group of people. I have a particular issue with the Union. As a capitalist, that we bailed out Scotland and we've been bailing it out since 1707, right? It was more equal to England, certainly until 1708. It wasn't until 1708 where they finally said you've got to stop torturing Englishmen, right? Because from 1641 we abolished torture, right? The English. So we're the good guys, not the bad guys. But here's the crucial bit, and people need to understand this, right? I'm going to show you, and it's really important that people somehow get him to understand what meaning Charlie Downs, right? Sorry, let me get to the camera. He spoke of revolution, right? So I'm going to show you something now, which is this book, right? Now, everyone may or may not know or understand what this is. This is Hamlin Lectures, right? Again, the woman that created this was a solicitor, and the reason they created it because they wanted normal everyday people. She come from Devon to understand what the English Constitution was all about and what the common law was all about. And the people who went along to these lectures were only allowed to be normal lay people like me and like you, right? And the best of the best went along. The first lecture was in 1949 by Lord Denning. It was called Freedom Under the Law, right? Which I've got here, right? So William Wade is one of our greatest scholars, equally as great as A.V. Dicey and others. And bearing in mind, the books I've got behind me are the originals from Callum, where A.V. Dicey learnt the Constitution from. And A.V. Dicey changed his mind in a second book, and particularly on the Union, and explained to people why it was. So on page 44, this is a really short book, and it's fantastic because it's a lecture. And he goes in and he talks about different things and entrenchment. And he talks about this chapter is about legislation, right? So if I go back to the original part of this chapter, judicial adjustments, rival theories, he talks about everything on it, right? Legislation, a defective system, right? Chapter 3. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is so that Charlie Downs and Rupert Lowe's team understand I'm not just making this stuff up, right? The information that I provide to people comes from the greatest legal-minded scholars in our history, right? And I'm talking about some of them going back 800 years, right? Now, in particular, this says, must there be a revolution, right? Now, they're actually guiding us towards a revolution because they believe that meaning the enemy, believe that the only way to take out our constitution, remove our written constitution, we do have one, right? It's just not codified in a single document, but we do have a codified constitution in separate documents. It is for judges that should know that, and people of authority should know that inside out, right? Right. Must there be a revolution? A primary question to explore in approaching our own problem is whether it is indispensable to have a revolution or its equivalent before the traditional doctrine of sovereignty can be changed. Remember what I said earlier on about the allodal titles. Constitutional restraints are the natural product of revolutions, right? So I'm going to stop it there again. Constitutional restraints. Now, by saying that, he's recognising that the Constitution is there to restrain the government and to restrain the Crown and to restrain Parliament itself, right? Since there is then can be a clean break with the past, and any rules of any kind can be adopted for the future, which is what we have with the English Bill of Rights. A constituent assembly may be convened without any legal antecedents, and the very fact of its irregularity gives authority to the constitution that it adopts, right? Which is why everyone should understand this. The National Health Service has a constitution. It has a framework agreement, a framework document, right? Which is why they're on many occasions they're illegally taking people's assets for care homes when they shouldn't be, right? That's just a side angle to that, right? Gives authority to the constitution it adopts. So where patriotic alternatives should be aligning, and Etho-nationalists should be aligning, and English nationalists should be aligning, and Scottish nationalists should be aligning, and Welsh nationalists should be aligning, and Northern Ireland nationalists should be aligning with Restore Britain, because Restore Britain would restore, from my understanding, the allodal titles, right? Part of our difficulty in Britain is that we have not had a fresh start of this kind since 1688, and that was a century before the era of written constitutions, right? What he means is single. Again, this comes down to phrasing and people's actual understanding. It doesn't mean he doesn't understand what I'm saying or I don't understand what he's saying. People have a different way of phrasing something, but you can be meaning the same thing, right? In other words, he would take what I'm saying as a mute point. He would say, well, that's obvious. I'll say, yeah, but you're not making it obvious. But it's not obvious to the layperson that we have a written constitution, right? The interesting question is, must there be necessary a legal break with the past in order that a different principle of sovereignty may be established? Certainly, that has been so in most of the cases which have come to mind, and I include among them all the transfers of sovereignty to the newly independent countries of the British Commonwealth. For one must not be deceived by legal camouflage. When the Ghana Independence Act, Constitution of India, Article 368, when the Ghana Independence Act, for example, was passed in 1957, the Constitution of Ghana having been duly created by Order in Council beforehand. Another person who talks about Order in Council is Douglas Carswell, right? There was, in fact, just as clean a break with the British legal connections as there was when the Constitution of the United States of America was adopted in 1787. Just to make sure you understand, right? So the Constitution of the United States of America, fully codified in one document, right? But all of this comes from the English Constitution, all of it, right? Just to make sure you're aware of that. So, and that's called the We the People document, right? After a successful rebellion, on paper, the Constitution of Ghana had a legal pedigree deriving from Britain, but in reality, Ghana was launched into independence, and her judges would be would in future have to solve her constitutional problems on their own. Over 20 years beforehand, South Africa had made the same discovery when she severed her connection in 1934, proclaiming by statute that she was an independent sovereign state, a step which she was fully entitled to take. So far as British law was concerned, under the Statute of Westminster, of 1931, I've brought this up for various reasons to do with Canada, right? Because Canada is still governed by the English Bill of Rights, right? Then the question arose: what about entrenched clauses? This is a crucial question, and entrenched clauses are not just entrenched over time because we don't have something called certitude in England, whereas Roman law does. This is what the Roman Catholic canons are so dangerous to England, right? And why it's so dangerous to have Scots in our Parliament, right? So continued to live under the Constitution of 1909, imposed from Westminster, which provided that certain matters, including the electoral rights of the Cape coloured voters, should be changed only by a 2/3 majority of both houses of Parliament sitting together, right? But we don't say that. We say you cannot change it. Once our ancestors said forever 3 times in the English Bill of Rights, and in this realm for all time to come once, 4 times they made a reference to in perpetuity, forever. You can never get rid of it, right? That's the part that people really need to understand, right? But the government claimed that after 1934 they could be changed by any act passed by simple majorities in the houses separately. That's the problem with a democratic republic, right? It can change the constitution at will. You will never get continuity of law, right? Which is what English law gives you. You'll never get it, and that's what causes problems. And there's many problems being caused in America because of amendments to the Constitution. Since the South African Parliament was now sovereign, and it was asserted could do no more to ban any enactment that could be sovereign Parliament of the United Kingdom. Right now, bearing in mind that Parliament is not sovereign because Section 2 of the English Bill of Rights was unlawfully repealed to make them sovereign, and they weren't allowed to do it, and no one knew because they buried it, right? We found it, we've promoted it, we've told people this is ultra-vires. That's what's and it was done in 1948, the same time as the British Nationality Act, which again attacked our constitution and allowed foreigners in our parliament, sovereign Parliament, United Kingdom. Constitutional lawyers then disputed this question as if there was a legal path leading to the correct solution. But in fact, there is no such path. There was a new situation in which only the judges could say what they now recognise as a valid act of the new sovereign legislature, right? Because the judges act as common law judges. In fact, they elected to retain the entrenched clauses, but they had decided the contrary, as indeed they had done in the earlier case, right? So I could go through the rest of this, right? But this is a book that Charlie Downes really does need to read, right? because it spells out that he's one of our best scholars. He was one of the best friends of Lord Denning. The geezer's no mug. He's mentioned in a lot of law books, but no one ever talks about him anymore, right? But then it's got the easy way out, right? After all this build up to my suggestion will seem, I fear, a very simple and obvious. But I believe it is the one to which logic inexorably leads. All that needs to be done in order to entrench any sort of fundamental law is to secure its recognition in the judicial oath of office. Exactly what I was saying. Even before I read this, right, I was telling people you need to change the judicial oath of office. They are making an oath to the wrong people, right? It is to the Constitution. If you go back to Sir John Laws and you see my emails, it actually says Sir John Laws backed this up and said it is the Constitution that is sovereign. It is the Constitution that is the ultimate rule of law, right? And that's what the judges should be finding. But again, they're all corrupt now. The only trouble at present is that the existing form of oath gives no assurance of obedience to statutes binding the later parliaments, but there is every assurance that if the judges undertake upon their oath to act in some particular way, they will do so. If we should wish to adopt a new form of constitution, therefore, all that needs to be done is to put the judges under oath to enforce it, right? An act of parliament could be passed to discharge them from their former oaths if that were thought necessary, and to require them to be re-sworn in the new terms. All the familiar problems of sovereignty then disappear. A fresh start has been made, and the doctrine that no parliament can bind its successor becomes ancient history, and the new fundamental law is secured by the judiciary sworn to uphold it. Right? What I'm trying to tell you from that book, did everyone see what I've just shown you? Because it's crucially important. How many lectures? Constitutional fundamentals, Sir William Wade, and I'm going to go back there because I think it's really important that everyone understands that. Right, there is the Constitution of the United States. That's the We the People pamphlet that they give you. We've got one of our leaflets here somewhere, which we give out to people. Right, that's that book, Constitutional Fundamentals, Sir William Wade, and this is in effect our We the People pamphlet. Right. So what we do is we list the constitutional laws that are forever, all the way down there. Then we explain what your rights are down the middle there, right? And that's our leaflet. And yet we are attacked as far right. There's nothing far right about us. We believe in the rule of law. What we're saying is the judges are corrupt to the core. They have, and various ideologies have corrupted the process of making law, corrupted the judges' minds, which they have, right? You could make me I could be a judge. I could go from here now as a common lawyer and operate as a lawyer in Texas and earn a living, right? A good living. Because one, I understand the Constitution, and two, I understand how the common law works. And the common law Constitution was adopted by Texas in 1836 in its entirety. Which is why Texas is pushing forward on this COVID stuff, right? So what I'm trying to say to Charlie Downs, right? You've got these EFO nationalists attacking Charlie Downs. You've got Tommy Robinson attacking Charlie Downs. That tells me Charlie Downs, they feel Charlie Downs is going to be pushing forward, right? He's got what it takes. The same as Rupert Lowe, the same as Marlon West, right? We are at the tip of the spear. There are issues that I have got, right? With there's certain things that I would accept, right? How we do it, I don't know, but I'm willing to sit down and discuss it. That's the difference with me and these other people. I've been doing this a long time. More and more people are saying, Graham, we understand what you're saying now, right? And what I'm saying to Charlie, there's 5 books, small books, right? They're not even written for legal professionals. They're written for lay people, right? By highly intelligent people, right? That know the law inside out, right? And they are telling you how to solve this problem, right? Our ancestors are, again, don't forget, Sir William Wade died, I think, in 2004, right? So John Laws, again, if you go back and if you look at what I say, I don't think I can bring it up on my. Let's see if I can bring it up on my thing. Let's have a look. Yeah, let's see. I don't know whether all of this is going to come out in a post or not, but hopefully it will. I've got to try and put the whole thing on there. I don't think that's going to work. I'm trying to quote you or put a quote on the screen of what Sir John Laws said. Sir John Laws is noted for his extrajudicial writings in the journal Public Law. His most notable contribution, Law and Democracy, asserts that the Constitution would be undemocratic if it gave all the power under the elected government or Parliament, right? Therefore, it is the Constitution and not Parliament that should be sovereign in the British English Constitution. Does everyone understand that? That's Sir John Laws, right? That's Dominic Cummings' uncle. No wonder they don't like Dominic Cummings, right? And all I'm trying to do is tell you and tell the people and get this message out to people, right? There's a much easier solution to solving our problems. And because we are all adults around the table, right? Not these people that are throwing spears where they shouldn't be throwing spears. I remember a few months back, everyone saying, don't punch right, don't punch right, don't punch right. I'm not left or right. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm an English nationalist, but an English constitutionalist because that incorporates English nationalism, right? And yet people don't understand. If you go and have a look, let me see if I can bring this up for you, because I think this is really important that people see this. Scottish MP, let's see this, Laura Bird, right? Right, I'm going to put this up. Now, this was actually put out by the MP today, right? I'm going to put it out there. Listen to this, right? Has everyone seen this? Now, bearing in mind that you can be a Scottish MP, but be standing in, just like Keir Hardie did, in East London. So they take the cities and the local areas and they con the working class into voting for them, right? And they're socialists. Have a listen to this.
Order! Will the members wishing to take their seats please come to the table? Laura Bird, member for Arbroath and Broughton Ferry.
Broughton Ferry, in fact.
I take this oath only so that I can serve the people of Arbroath and Broughton Ferry. My first allegiance is, and always will be, the sovereign people of Scotland. I do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to the law, so help me God.
And that was her that actually sent that out today, right? And she's an SNP Palestine activist lawyer, Laura Bird, or Laura Bird, or whatever how you want to pronounce it, makes a mockery of her oath, right? So I've just shown everyone on here, you've just seen it, right? Now, what I am telling you is the current position is, and people like Rupert Lowe don't understand this, right? In this book, Sir William Wade explains that the only time they was fairly represented in an English Parliament, the Scots, was when Cromwell took control as a Commonwealth, right? And what he did, Cromwell, he said you can have 20 MPs for the boroughs and 10 as barons, that's it, right? And most of them didn't turn up, didn't bother turning up in the Parliament, right? He said, fair enough, because we're about everyone. You ain't got to turn up. We're not going to do anything bad to you, right? And the Protestants fought with Cromwell, right? So just to make sure everyone's aware of that. Now, understand this. You've gone from 30 maximum MPs to 57 constituencies that they've got now in the SNP. Then you've got other ones. Can't remember how much the total is in Scotland, right? But then a Scot can come to England, sit in an English constituency, get elected, right? Whereas we can't. I looked this up the other day. We can't get elected in Scotland. I'm not saying it's unlawful. I'm saying they wouldn't elect you. The Scots would not elect an Englishman in Scotland, right? And yet they come to our constituencies, and then technically they've got dual nationality because Scotland is a separate legal jurisdiction. It is a separate nation, right? And then they're representing their own people and their own class and their own whatever in Scotland, right? The same thing is happening with the Welsh. So the Welsh have got their own MPs for Wales, right? Wales currently, I'm not being horrible to the Welsh, is currently a shithole. And the reason is because it's been badly managed by people in Labour, right? They don't know what they're doing, right? Well, actually, they do. Like they're destroying. They want their objective is to destroy the British Isles, and that is their intention, right? But Welsh candidates and people with Welsh history can come to Devon, right? And then say, well, I'm going to stand, and then the English elect them. That's what happened with Keir Hardie, right? So what I'm trying to say to people is, if you're saying, I firmly believe you cannot have dual nationality, right? It is a conflict of interest at the highest level. It's why we never allowed Catholics in certain positions. We still don't allow a Catholic to be the king. What is going on here? So do you all understand what I'm actually saying? Again, don't think I'm having a go at Catholics. I'm not. It's the Jesuits. And no one wants to talk about them. By the way, the head of the Department of War for the United States of America does talk about Jesuits. Q Guardians, evening Q, hope you're well. Andy, I want to know where we get these books, these old books talking about. So just to make sure they're there, right? So again, you've got these books are fantastic. And people need to know, you can go and download the PDFs of these from Exeter University, right? And you can read them for nothing. Or you can buy them in book form, which means you have to pay for them. Let me have a look. Right, is there any questions from anyone before I start melting in my chair? Because I have started to melt. It's rather warm here. I think I'm going to have a bad night again tonight. That eye looks a bit funny, doesn't it? That eye.
Yeah, I've got some more drops in.
Tyrants. Do we elect them or are they installed? Andy, any questions? Right, I'm going to go to the moderators and see if I can see any questions coming in. Patriotic Alternative attempted to cause one of the migrant hotels which we attended. To see them try to do something. Antifa leader in US just been sentenced to 100 years in prison. Really? I haven't seen that. I need to look at that. Jason Graham, was English common law from Anglo-Saxons or the Normans? The actual common law has developed over right through our history, but it goes back to the Wittens, right, which is Anglo-Saxon. The nearest thing, so Jason, one of the things to let you know, and I want you to come on the show. I still haven't read through the entirety of that judgment, which was really important that you sent me from America. People really do need to understand that the nearest thing to England in its original form of governance is the United States of America, believe it or not. People don't, if they really and I'm talking about the original America, not after 1860 and the federalised government. What was being imposed then was basically Britishness, right? And yes, it was the British that caused the Civil War. Antifa leader in there, John's dog. Day, do you not think it's possible Rupert is saying all those things to Brad because he knows the consciousness is going in that direction? Rupert's still got my vote, but it's possible. Listen. If Rupert's not on, you've got someone being backed by a trillionaire. You've got someone who's got anywhere between 60 and 100 million of his own money. He's actually seen with his own eyes now and listened to the testimonies, and you think he ain't on our side, right? The difference with Rupert is he's a businessman, and it's the way our Parliament used to work before the 1911 Parliament Act, right? And he's saying we need to sort this out, right? You will get these different disparaging groups. If he was running a factory, you'll have a little group of geezers in the corner there. I've seen it happen, right? In factories, my dad owned and operated 2 factories. You'll always get someone who just hates everyone permanently, right? And just really don't want to be there. And you say, well, what do you want? Go and get another job somewhere else then, right? The problem the English have got is we can't go anywhere else. There was a donation. Thank you very much. $5. Ray Edmonds. It was Rotherham, Graham. What was Rotherham? Yeah, no. Well, I went to the Rotherham one, and that's where Peter Lynch was. And Peter Lynch tried to get me to go on a march. And I said, we're in a lawful assembly, videoing this and standing here, right? That's a lawful assembly. There's no issues with that. If you're protesting and standing still, even in massive numbers, once you hit that road, if you ain't got permission, even though I technically believe that's unlawful, if you ain't got permission, you're giving them a reason to arrest you. And he stepped onto the road and they arrested him. He wouldn't listen. I'm not going to say any more about him, her in the American spotlight, and he is better not slip now. That was publicity stunt. What was a publicity stunt? And we use English measurement, pre-imperial measurements. We need to get this message out right across America, right across the world. We need people to understand what's going on. Even today, it's been, I don't know whether it's true or not, that Keir Starmer on his last day has allowed shadow missiles to be used against Russia. That's an act of war. That is an act of war, right? I've said this before and I'll say it again. Rupert Nutlow needs to be a war leader. He needs to put a group of people ready and in place as part of this plan to organise and get these people out of this country, including people that are highly skilled in the SAS, right? and especially veteran SAS, and I know a few of them, right? I know a few Royal Marines will step in as well. My bones tell me Rupert Lowe can be trusted. Listen, you can only go with a gut instinct. Again, I'm just saying to everyone, I would rather have 80% of something than 100% of nothing, right? It's just common sense. It's a commercial decision. No one ever agreed with someone. That's it. So we can get any of that sent out to Charlie Downs. It would be useful. It's never actually spoken to me, but I'm sure someone will in the background. That's it. I'm going to say good night. God bless. Don't forget what I believe in. The Constitution is the solution. Constitutional fundamentals. Yes, we do have a constitution. Yes, we do have a written constitution, and in part it is codified. It is certainly entrenched. And the easiest way to solve the problem is to change the judicial oath. Voila. That's it. Good night. God bless.